Okay, I have a video about Metadimensional, my book, out on Kindle. So in part, there's a few chapters in the book where I'm discussing this thing I call virtual sentience, which is how to emulate the dynamics that happen between experience and the brain in a computer in an attempt to perhaps learn how to understand like deeply the way the brain works and what it would take to create artificial brains or uh, artificial brains, artificial experiential intersections. Never mind. So, um, and while thinking about that, I realized something about the brain, which is kind of like easy to miss. So start from this. Let's assume that you agree that experience is fundamental in the sense that the brain doesn't produce it. Let's just start from that. I'm not gonna prove that in this video. You can see that there's evidence for like this kind of appeal to experience. For example, the fact that you're perceiving three-dimensional space through two eyes that are very good for three-dimensional space, and three-dimensional space is necessary for to perceive forms, and forms are required to perceive anything, without which you cannot comprehend what you perceive. There's only in other videos. So you have like pretty good evidence for the necessity for experience in addition to whatever the body does. But then I realized that okay, so assume that the brain needs experience, but what for? Like so we know we have like experiments that show that brain activation can precede any intentional thought. That it was David Liebitz's experiments in the 80s. I'm not sure about the details, and that showed that basically experience is epiphenomenal. It's not necessary for the function of the brain. But then there's something. Now, if you think about trying to emulate this, so had you needed experience for something, but you wanted to make sure that experience won't mess up your algorithms or whatever, you would give it a sandbox. You would give it some kind of a sandbox where the decisions or whatever experience undergoes wouldn't change the function of the body. It would just be, even if it does something, it wouldn't change anything. But that, and if you were thinking about, for example, let's say a computer game, if you wanted the computer game not be affected by the function of the game, the proper regular maintenance of the game wouldn't depend on the player, then you wouldn't put like core functions and root access and admin access to be part of the game world, right? You would simply, you won't put it there. Like you would protect the code. But that's not what happens in brains. Brains could have used like could have embedded, like had a computer running in the background that run maybe neural networks, or maybe support vector machines, I don't know, and do all the machine learning and not let experience see anything that it can change that would modulate the way it functions. But instead it chose to use neural networks such that you can track the propagation of brain activation in the physical sphere, and of course, like that is like, it's not like if you look at the brain or if you look at your own MRI you can control the brain, but you are still in the same space as the brain. You didn't need to be in the same space. Like clearly, everything you perceive is produced by the body, by the brain. It produces this concoction for you. It didn't need to put itself inside it. Uh, but it chose to do that. Now you could say that just it wasn't smart enough to obfuscate it. But it's pretty smart when you look at the other organs. Like it's pretty smart. Like there's another way of looking at this, and just to understand, this is not an accident. The brain wants experience to be in the same space as its own internals because it relies on experience. It needs experience to do things. It needs the intelligence of experience. It puts itself out there in the same three-dimensional space as the space that experience perceives, so that experience would have the capacity to make admin level changes. It's not necessary. It could have avoided it. And if you try to write this virtual sentience thing, if you didn't want, the only reason you'd build a neural, like physical neural networks, is for that, is to have this ability of the experiential emulation of the experiential driver, the intentional driver, to be able to alter the machine-like machine learning apparatus.